YouTube, it's Enigma here. So this is our sixth session in Road to Cat RC Experience series. So this is a sociology-based RC which we'll be dealing with today. As usual, I will provide the PDF of the session in the comment section below so you can access through it. So let's get started. There is something profoundly irksome about a recent story in the New York Times that cheerfully declared ebooks makes reader feel less isolated. The article's underlying premise seems to be that being a dedicated reader, a classical bookworm, is a fundamentally uncool and solitary venture. So, author is saying that there is certainly something which is bothersome that is being mentioned in a recent story in the New York Times. That the story, you can say that the story highlight the title of the story mentioned that ebooks made reader feels less isolated. So the premise here is that if you are using ebooks, then you will be feeling less isolated. The underlying premise of that story seems to be that a dedicated reader, if you are a dedicated reader or a classical bookworm, which is you can say a geek is also used for this thing, it is actually uncool and solitary venture. Like it's a lonely venture and it's uncool as well. The story alleges, however, that the simple act of carrying a sleek e-reader or tablet magically transformed this nerdy hobby into something chic and socially acceptable. And so the story says that if you are using, you can say book, then you are a nerdy geek, and if you are using a tablet or e-reader, then you may transform so that you may transform so that you can say geek to into you can say socially chic and acceptable person. One interview, Michael Hughes, a communications associate, gushed about the public's reaction to his iPad, which he uses for reading. Strangers constantly ask about it, he said. It's like almost having a new baby. This comparison, though perhaps innocent, frames the reading device not as a portal to other world but as a social object, a conversation starter designed to draw attention in this one. So this is the problem that the author is having. Author is not having a problem that you are reading on an like iPad or reader of a book. He is not concerned with that, but he is much more concerned about the discussion that's been going on inside the story and the way it has portrayed that if you have a book and if you're reading through a book, then you are a socially geek person and you are not socially acceptable person, or you can say uncool and it is a solitary venture. But on the other hand, if you replace that book with a iPad, then you become socially acceptable, and it provides the example of this person as well, which is, you can say, Michael Hughes, and in which he says that if he is with iPad, people ask him just like it is it is like having a new baby. So it's like people are interested in having conversation with him. So author is having issue with that statement itself. This modern reframing of reading as a public performance is where the real issues lie. So authors main contention with the issue is modern reframing of reading as a public performance is where the real issues lie. So author says the issue of a book should be, you can say, solitary venture. It should be a solitary venture. It shouldn't be social venture. But the way you have framed this modern reframing of reading as a public performance is with which author is having a deep contention. The problem is, to be clear, is not with the ebook itself. I am a firm advocate for any mode of literacy delivery that successfully connects a story to a reader. If the only way I would consume Tolstoy immense War and Peace was by having a meticulously organized trail of ants marching across my desk and each hosting a tiny piece of rice inscribed with the relevant word, that would be grand. If dizzyingly impractical spectacle. My argument is not about the vessel, print, digital, or insect based. Rather, I am intrigued and frankly baffled by the underlying notion that the reading's value is enhanced by making it less antisocial. So the author's main problem is not about, you can say, the type of book he is reading. He's fine with, you can say, like the author's argument is not about the mode of literacy. Like if you're reading with books or if you're reading with iPad or if you're reading with computer, he has no problems with that. The main point or the main contention that the author is have is the argument is, you can say, like the act of reading can be if you are reading with, you can say, iPad and printer, or something like iPad or something like digitally, uh, the value of that reading that you're getting from reading from an iPad is enhanced if making it less antisocial. It's like if you are the act of reading requires you to be like antisocial, isn't it? Like this, I'm intrigued and frankly baffled by the underlying notion that reading's value is enhanced by making it less antisocial. So this is probably the thing that is bothering, you can say, author the most. Accordingly to author, books require you to be antisocial, and the notion that the act of reading can be made, the value of the reading can be made enhanced, or you can say reading value is enhanced or increased if you make it the process itself antisocial. That is something that the author is having a real contention with. That is the underlying premise that the author is making until now. Doesn't the very act of deep reading necessitates a degree of separation from immediate social interaction? So author said this is a rhetorical question. We know the authors wants the answer. We know that the answer to this question is definitely yes. So these questions are rhetorical questions. Doesn't the very act of deep reading necessitates a degree of separation from immediate and social interaction? If you are reading a book, you want to be in a solitary place, isn't it? If there's a constant noise, or you can say there's constant clashes of noise or commotion going on, you don't want to read in such a place. So the act of reading itself requires you to remain in an solitary place or a silent place. Okay, and you are separate from the social interaction in which there is. If you are reading a book and somebody is bothering you, obviously you are not focusing on reading, isn't it? So indeed, isn't that quite deliberate withdrawal a significant part of its enduring appeal? So author is saying, isn't reading that like withdrawal from socially gathering, or like withdraw socially in order to read a book? That is the appeal of it, isn't it? So the answer to this question is also yes. So this is also a rhetorical question. Historically, I was always under the impression that books served a vital dual purpose. They not only offer a meticulously crafted world for us to enter, but they also provide an affordable and effective means of escape from the world we currently inhabit. So, author specifically believes that the purpose of the book is dual. There are dual purpose that they offer an escape from this world that we inhabit. Okay, that this is the thing, that they offer a meticulously crafted world for us to enter. We can enter into an imaginary world, and they also provide an affordable and effective means of escape from the world we currently inhabit. So the world we are currently inhabit, it provides an escape from it, and it allows us to enter into a world of which is meticulously crafted. This is a two, you can say, dual purpose of a book. What a wonderfully convenient cloak a book can be on a crowded subway, a long train journey, or even while sitting along a bustling bar, allowing one to enjoy the ambient hum of humanity while being peacefully absorbed in something else entirely. So he is, like praising thing that the act of using a book as a cloak to shield themselves from, you can say, on a crowded subway or long train journey is specifically, you can say, something else. That is the words that the author has chosen. This function is perfectly captured in Anne Tyler's novel. So author is saying that this function of book is specifically captured in Tyler's novel, The Accidental Tourist, in which books are recommended as essential props for travelers who wish to signal their unavailability for idle chatter with strangers. The books become a polite but firm shield, a declaration of chosen solitude. So author says that this thing is exceptionally, you can say, be seen in perfectly captured. This essence is perfectly captured in Anna Tyler's novel, The Accidental Tourist, in which you can say the people or the passengers are recommended, or the travelers are recommended books as a props. Like if I don't want to chatter with somebody else, I will just use book as a prop, because if I'm reading a book, chances are that nobody will try to talk to me, because book is like my deliberate shield against the non or say idle chatter. If I'm reading a book on a subway, there is highly unlikely that somebody would start a casual conversation with me. The writer Jonathan Franzen articulated something powerful about this in a cover story in Time magazine. Okay, so there is this mention of just Jonathan Franzen and his views, and he articulated something powerful about this in a cover story in Time magazine. So few would hold up Mr. Franzen as a paragon of joyful social living. Like he's not the paragon. Like the perfect example of a joyful person or a socially living person. He famously describes the act of writing as miserable work, and he describes the act of writing it is like a miserable work, and counts solitary bird watching among his few indulgences. And he says that rather than reading, you should, like it's a miserable work. Rather than writing, it is actually a miserable work. You should, like spend times in bird watching. He is utterly convincing in his case for the importance of sustained deep concentration demanded by reading. But he also said, although he considers writing to be a miserable work, and he says rather than writing, you should be focusing on bird watching instead. He also said that while reading, you need sustained and deep concentration. That is what he is, we can say, proponating for. He is the advanced he is a proponent for, you can say, reading in solitude. We are so distracted by and engulfed by the technologies we have created and by the constant barrage of so-called information that comes our way. So Franzen said that there is a constant barrage of information that is coming by, that the due to which we are like distracted, and this distraction is caused by technology itself. Franzen argued that more than ever to immerse yourself in an involving book seems socially useful. Now, this is like one thing that you have to understand right now. This part is really important, that the author is saying that Franzen argued that more than ever to immerse yourself in an involving book seems socially useful. Now, one thing is that there is clearly a paradox here. How is it socially useful? If you are becoming involved in a book and you are not communicating with any other person, if you are being less antisocial, then how does it makes you and socially useful? Isn't the act of socially useful requires you to talk to others? That is the act of socially useful. So how does it make socially useful? So there is a paradox or contradiction here. The place of stillness that you have to go to write but also to read seriously is the point where you can actually make responsible decisions. So now author says, like Franzen says, that the place of stillness that you have to go to write, there should be a place of stillness where you're writing but also to read seriously, and in a place where you're reading seriously is the point where you can actually make responsible decisions. Is that space itself where you actually make responsible decisions. You are taking responsibility for something, you are actually thinking about something, and you are making responsible decisions. That's being said here, where you can actually engage productively with an otherwise scary and unimaginable world. So you are being socially the act, like this mentioned here, that if you're immersing yourself in an involving book and it is socially useful. Why it is socially useful? Because you're going to a place of stillness, where you not only write but also read seriously. By doing so, you can actually make responsible decisions because you're actually engaging productively with an otherwise scary and unimaginable world. So that's why this paradox is explained here, because you're going to a place of stillness. So that's being mentioned in the this paragraph. Now let's go on to the fourth paragraph. Books therefore require a certain quietude, a solitude, like a place of stillness, voluntarily isolating himself for other people. That is all the more precious for the way it can be achieved even in the most public of spaces. And this thing is that books therefore require a certain quietude, a solitude, that is all the more precious for the way it can be achieved even in the most public of spaces. So books are the way that you can achieve solitude or quietness in public spaces as well. The constant barrage of information that Mr. Franzen describes makes the protective insularity of a good book more valuable than ever, rendering it a powerful antidote. And now author is considering, because like the constant barrage of information that's been coming out, as per said by Mr. Franzen. So in order to protect yourself, the insularity of a good book is more precious than ever. Okay, so this is being said by the, and authors also consider it a powerful antidote to it. Still, few may be inspired to follow Mr. Franzer's rather extreme approach for keeping the siren song of the internet bay. To protect his focus, he explains what you have to do is you plug in an Ethernet cable with a super glue, and then you saw off the little head of it. A drastic measure, perhaps, but one that underscores the profound value of the uninterrupted mental space that reading also can provide. So that is also, you can say, an extreme measure, that feel like Mr. Franze provided rather an extreme measure, that what you have to do is you actually glue the Ethernet cable that is actually inserted inside your computer or laptop, and you actually saw off that head in order to get the sustained, you can say, mental space, uninterrupted mental space, and sustained peace that reading can provide. So this is the essence of the passage. So as you can see, this is not a very tough passage. It describes about, it starts with the argument that the author is not, you can say, in sync, or the author is not justified by the way this article, e-books makes readers feel less isolated, has portrayed the image of reading. As you can say, if you're having reading with a book, you are, a geek and uncool, but if you're reading with a reader, then you are extremely cool. He is not satisfied by that manner, and he says then on the next passage itself, then he says that has no problem with the way the book has written, but the kind of image that reading, the value of reading can be enhanced if you are being less, and if you are more social. So that is the thing that he has is having a problem with. Then on to the third paragraph, he said that the reading has dual purposes. The reading can be served as, like entering into a world which is meticulously crafted, and you can say taking escape from the real world. That's the dual purposes of the book itself. And the example of Anna Tyler's Accidental Tourist is also comes into play, in which you can say books provide a solitude, like it's like a shield towards the distractions that's been going on outside the world. Then we comes on to Jonathan Franzen's idea, his supposedly paradox, that we discussed that Franzen argues that reading books is like very useful because it's a socially useful phenomena. By immersing yourself in an involving book, it's socially useful. because why is it socially useful? Because you can say uh, the moment you are going on to a place of stillness where you are not only it, you, because while you are reading you go to a place of stillness, um, you have to go to a place of stillness where you read seriously is the point where you can actually make responsible decisions. That's the moment where you can make responsible decisions, and you can, like, become a better person because you engage actively, because you engage productively with an otherwise scarcely and unimaginable world. And then you conclude that books provide a place of quietude and solitude in, you can say, in a bus or in a train or something public, most public of places it provides a kind of solitude, and it protects us from the barrage of information. It's like a powerful antidote. So that's the specific thing that the passage is saying. So let's now tackle at the questions now. According to the passage, which of the following cannot be inferred, which means negative, as a role or functions of books? So we have to specifically adhere to the sayings of books itself. Providing solitude even in the middle of a crowd, we have learned that this is on to the last paragraph itself. So this is a positive, hence it's not the answer. Allowing an individual to escape from the world, this is specifically mentioned in the paragraph, so this is also mentioned, so that's why it is not an answer. Providing access to information and ideas. Now, common sense says that this is the use of book, but this is not mentioned in the paragraph, hence it is specifically the contender for an answer. Let's check four first. Creating a space for introspection and engagement within the world. This is actually being said by Franzen itself. That if you look at here, Franzen argued that the more than ever to immerse yourself in an involving book seems socially useful. The place of stillness that you have to go to write, but also to read seriously, is the point where you can actually make responsible decisions. So, the creating a space for introspection and engagement is the word. This is being discussed by the um, discussion by Franzen itself. So, this is also mentioned, and hence it is not the answer. So, the only answer is option number three. The only way you can get this question incorrect if you are using external information, which is specifically the trap here. Now look at the second question. Which of the following statements most accurately captures, which means there might be some other statements which might capture the fundamental paradox that the author identifies in Jonathan Franzen's perspective on reading. Whenever you see most accurately captures, always raise your attention span, because in such questions there might be more than one correct options, or there might be some options which are partially correct, but there might be an option which would be, like, best across these four. So we have to look for the best. So, which of the following captures the following statements most accurately captures the fundamental paradox that the author identifies in Jonathan Franzen's perspective on reading? So, what is the fundamental paradox on Jonathan Franzen's perspective of reading? Is that Franzen says that when you're immersing yourself in a book, it is a socially useful thing. But how can reading be a socially useful thing? Because in a socially an act of social usefulness requires you to communicate with others, but while you are reading you are being antisocial. So how it can be socially useful? That is the paradox that we need to address. That a man who finds writing to be miserable work is a primary advocate for the joy of engaging with books. Now, this is specifically a paradox. I will say this is not wrong. That, how a person who is saying that writing is a miserable work is primarily advocating for the joy of engaging with books. This is specifically a paradox, but this is not the paradox that we want to discuss, isn't it? Because we want to capture the fundamental paradox on his perspective on reading. So this, although this is a paradox, this is not the paradox that we want to target. That an act of deep solitary immersion in a book can be considered one of the most socially useful and responsible things a person can do. And this is exactly what we want to tackle, and this is precisely the paradox that we want to discuss. So let's go with the third option first. That the best way to productively engage with a scary and unimaginable world is to first escape from it by reading a book. Now, the thing is that we are not, you can say, are trying to discuss about the how, like, we want to escape first from by reading a book. We are not thinking about the world as a scary and unimaginable world, so in order to productively engage in it we need to escape it. It's not mentioned. It's like it has completely reversed the premise here. So this is not the thing that we want to do. So this is like incorrect. Why? It is explaining the best way. He has not said, like, the best way to reach this is to just escape from the world. So best is like really some sort of extreme measure here, and anywhere else there is no mention of, like, first escape from it by reading a book here. So that's why this question is incorrect. That an author unknown for his reclusive and antisocial tendencies would propose a method for others to achieve focus. Now, the thing is that this is a common policy. Like this type of option is a common policy in which, like look at, let me give you an example so that you will understand. So we all know, like there are, let's say if some sort of topic is going on, whether like AI is good or not, whether AI is good or not. Some sort of a person is advocating that AI is actually, you can say, AI is actually good. He is the person who is actually advocating for that. Now, you are a person, you want to judge whether he is good or not. So rather than focusing on the argument itself, you are focusing on that person. That that person is fat, that person is gay, that person is Islamophobic, or something like that. You're focusing on to the identity of that person itself rather than on the argument that he's making. And that is precisely a fallacy. You should not do this. And that is exactly what is mentioned here, that an author which is known for his reclusive and antisocial tendencies would propose a method for others to achieve focus. So are we focused upon the argument that the Jonathan Franzen is making, or we are focusing on his nature, that he is reclusive or antisocial tendencies? We are not interested in his, you can say, in his nature. We are much more focused on what he is trying to say or his argument itself. So that's why fourth is wrong, and hence second is the correct answer to this question. Which of these best expresses the central theme of the passage? So what was the central theme of the passage? Let's see one by one. The impact of technological innovations of reading. There are no essence of technological innovations, that technological innovation has caused this, has caused that. That is not the way. There is only one mention of technological innovation, is that is iPad. That's it. Apart from that, there is no mention of technological invention as well. So this deviates the passage onto a specific direction which is mentioned been only once or on some parts of the passage. So this is not the essence of the passage. New forms of reading books. Now we are not explaining how you should read books, or there has not been an explanation of new forms of reading books, that you should read books like this or you should books like that. There are not descriptions of various new forms of reading books. So this is also, you can say, a distraction. The nature of the process of reading. Now this seems like an eluding option, because you can say we want to explore, like the author says that, like reading is specifically, you can say, an antisocial phenomena in which you detach yourself from the world and you get immersed into the worlds of books. But right now you can say that people are actually using iPad as a way, and like the discussion of iPad comes into play, that the e-readers, or specifically iPads, what they do is they make the process of reading less antisocial, and by that the value of reading is increased. So author is against that. So we are actually discussing the nature of process of reading. And then Jonathan Franzen's argument is considered, where he says that in order to read, you have to, you can say, detach yourself and go into a place of stillness. You have to go to a place of stillness. So that is the key essence here. So definitely we are explaining the nature of the process of reading. So this seems like a good option. The importance of reading. Now, although this may seem like an alluring option, but the fact is not about importance of reading. Like why reading is important is not discussed here, but rather than why reading is not important, the nature of process of reading is important. Is that like the act of reading requires this, the act of reading requires that, not specifically the importance of reading, like reading causes to you this, reading makes your attention span better. That is not described here. The passage is more about the nature of process of reading, hence third is the correct answer to this. Now let's look at the last question itself. If Michael Hughes, the interview quoted in the first paragraph, were to read Anna Tyler's The Accidental Tourist on his iPad while on a crowded subway, he would most likely be creating a situation that is. Now you have to visit the main argument first. Like here is the main argument. And if you realize this, you have to first understand that the author is not buying the argument that like you can become that the value of the reading can be enhanced by being uh, less antisocial. Like this is the thing that's being mentioned here. Wait a minute, I have to figure it out. Here it is. I am intrigued and frankly baffled by the underlying notion that the reading's value is enhanced by making it less antisocial. Author is definitely against this phenomena. And author would be definitely is not fond of this also, that the public's reaction to his iPad, which he uses for reading. Strangers constantly ask about it. He said it's almost like having a new baby, which means the act of possessing an iPad is making him more social. So author would not be likely doing this. Author would not be favorable to this. That's the author's take in here. So let's look at the question number 4 now. If Michael Hughes interview the interview quoted in the first paragraph were to read Anna Tyler's. So if he's reading Anna Tyler's Accidental Tourist on his iPad while on a crowded subway, he would most likely be creating a situation that is completely opposite to what he's expecting. Perfectly aligned with the author's argument? No, not specifically. A direct contradiction of the intended purpose. Exactly. And ideal synthesis is a very powerful positive word. Ideal synthesis is like the combination of two things. It's not a combination of two things, it's actually contradiction, so this is not the right word. A modern validation of Jonathan Franzen's argument. It's not a modern validation of Jonathan Franzen's argument about achieving stillness in a public space. This is not even reaching a stillness in a public space. Stillness would have been published if we are using a book, but we are not using a book itself. We are using a digital iPad, so this is wrong as well. So as you can see, this was an, you can say, decent paragraph, decent RC. You should try it yourself and then look at the solution as well for further clarity.